Zero Time Dilemma, the third and final game in the Zero Escape series. If you need a quick recap on the first two games, 999 is a masterpiece you should absolutely play if you get the chance. It uses small grains of truth, or parodies of the truth, to tell a fictional story that feels grounded and believable despite the extravagant setting. Every character is well designed and well written, making for a compelling experience. Nothing but praise from me here. Sadly, I don't feel the same about Virtue's Last Reward. It spends its much longer runtime telling a story with branching paths that spreads itself too thin. Every ending leads to a path with a twist wholly separate from the next. The higher energy and unfocused events made the story hard to follow and just left me overwhelmed. Despite that, both games use the interactive qualities of games to tell an interesting story that can really only be told in this way. So with high praise of the first game, and the sunk cost of the second, my curiosity brought me to the thrilling conclusion of the Zero Escape trilogy, Zero Time Dilemma.
Sometimes, life is simply unfair. Don't you think?
The cast of Zero Time Dilemma wake up trapped in cells. They're greeted by an ominous figure who wishes for them to play a game. The man tosses a coin to the ground. If they can guess the color side the coin is landed on, they get their freedom and may leave. If not, well, they can't leave the game until at least 6 of them are dead. With no real room to argue, the decision game begins. If luck is on your side and you call the coin flip correctly, then you may submit your speedrun. Everyone wakes up outside of the facility with their past memories wiped. They get their freedom and are none the wiser as the credits begin to roll. Here lies Zero Time Dilemma's first important lesson. You aren't playing the game just to get to the end. You're also playing to learn what events led you here in the first place. So back in you go to intentionally choose a bad outcome and dive right into learning the mysteries of Zero and the decision game. Everyone reawakens in another unfamiliar space. A broadcast from Zero explains the rules of the decision game. The game's participants are split into 3 teams separated into their own wards. C team is Carlos, Akane, and Junpei. Q team is Q, Mira, and Eric. D team is Diana, Phi, and Sigma. After 90 minutes, the bracelets strapped to each person's wrists will inject an anesthetic and memory erasing drug, causing them to forget the past 90 minutes. That cycle repeats until at least 6 X passes are revealed as a result of each person's death. It took me a good minute to recognize the returning cast. Zero Time Dilemma had a new character designer, Rui Tomono. Director Kotaro Uchikoshi said that a new character designer was chosen to give the impression that this game has changed significantly from the previous game. I like the designs of each character, both old and new. The redesigns also express change within the characters themselves. Junpei and Akane had the biggest redesigns. Their new look reflects just how much last year's events impacted their lives. I love this down on his luck Junpei. He's still this pragmatic, sarcastic guy we know and love from the first game, but now with even more life experience to complain about. Akane shows a more mature and collected side as a result of past events and events to come. You didn't get to see much of Sigma's face in Virtue's Last Reward, since you spent the game playing from his perspective. So it's nice seeing him back alongside Phi here in Zero Time Dilemma. Compliments go to the newcomers as well. Carlos is one of my new favorites. He radiates charisma. He's an American firefighter that initially got involved so he could earn money to pay for his little sister's medical bills. He's very open and encourages Junpei and Akane to communicate. He's an expert at reading the room and even gets them to talk through any unresolved feelings they might have for each other. Diana was another welcome addition. She's interesting because of how she bounces off Phi and Sigma. She becomes the much needed emotion that melds the 3 of them together. Q team, well, they all got their problems. Having a helmet strapped to a child that'll only come off with the correct passcode comes with its own obvious problems. Q team seems a bit more irrational, but they're written with plenty of space for empathy. Their troubled pasts make for interesting interactions. Eric is the perfect example of writing a flawed character that's meant to be annoying or pathetic, and is meant to create conflict. Despite that being his role, he never comes off as unlikable once you learn about his past and the trauma that came with it. He's also willing to reel back and genuinely apologize when he's shown kindness. This mix of old and new characters is a perfect fit for the finale of this trilogy. It's even reflected in the music. Each team's perspective is accompanied by their game's music. C Team has music from 999. D Team music from Virtue's Last Reward. And Q Team has their own new soundtrack. You begin by selecting scenes divided by each of the 3 teams' perspectives. You can choose any available scene to view in any order, and you'll unlock more as you go. Because of the way you can discover events in any order, there's an interesting conversation to be had about spoilers. Shocking stuff happens in Zero Time Dilemma all the time. I could tell you a particular character dies, or that another character makes it out alive, but that information alone won't make any sense. In fact, those statements might be true, but could have happened in an entirely separate timeline. Zero Time Dilemma uses and builds off 2 mechanics established in the first 2 games: morphogenetic field and shifting, allowing information and even consciousness to travel between time and space. That's right, Zero Time Dilemma uses time travel and multiple dimensions, 2 of the most confusing storytelling devices now together at last. The game forces you to understand the relation between multiple events, piecing them together one by one to explain where and why these events happen. You could view a scene with a certain outcome, and then the next scene you see could be entirely contradictory to it. The memory erasing drug given to everyone adds a layer of immersion, as they're experiencing these 90 minutes of time disconnected from the next, same as you. The characters in the game don't know how these events are related, and neither does the player. Thus, finding out how each event is related, building out the game's flowchart of events, and putting together a sequence of events is where the spoilers lie. So from here on, I'll be talking about certain specific details and events, but not in a way that would ruin your experience. However, everyone's tolerance for spoilers is different, and if this game sounds like something you'd like to play, then I recommend checking out the series and giving them a shot, then coming back to this video. When a team wakes up from their mandatory induced beauty sleep, they're usually trapped in a room and need to solve puzzles in order to escape. Finding the solutions to each escape room is the second main form of gameplay in Zero Time Dilemma. The events of the game take place in a bomb shelter, so puzzle locations take advantage of utility rooms like labs, computer rooms, health and recreational rooms to give context to the puzzles. The general flow starts by scanning the room for files and new information, or helpful items to use with equipment around you. With a little pattern recognition, you can decipher solutions to puzzles. The final puzzle usually results in creating a new piece of information by combining codes or solutions previously obtained. Zero Time Dilemma slid a few too many literal puzzle boxes in for my taste, but the majority of puzzles involve analyzing and interacting with the environment in interesting ways. One puzzle involves rotating entire sections of a room in order to access different parts of it. Another has you change scenery and perspective in a room to find different shapes. Others have you mixing and matching cables in computer rooms, or liquids in a lab to replicate different shapes and patterns. There's a nice flow in these escape room sections. Inspecting rooms give characters time to express themselves as they analyze their surroundings. After you complete a room, you're rewarded with scenes revealing new information, allowing you to better explore and connect story events. The name of the game this time around is the Decision Game. Your choices affect the outcome, choices that branch the story out into different timelines. Literally. Gameplay transforms in an organic way. At first, you're just solving escape room puzzles to get items or information, so you can move on to the next scene. You're put in seemingly unrelated scenarios that you purposely don't have the proper information to solve. Like, what do you mean I can't blame the dog? He's hiding something, I know it. Soon, escape rooms end by asking you to make a decision. One of my favorite parts of the series is how it makes its own science. It introduces a strange phenomena, usually just as characters telling a story. They give this phenomena a believable history, and even examples of it happening in a real-world scenario that later find their way directly into the events of the story. It's always so believable that I'm left asking the internet if this stuff is real or not. It's not. In Zero Time Dilemma, popular thought experiments are recreated as part of the life or death decision game. The Monty Hall problem, very simply put, has you choose one of 3 doors for a chance at winning money. After choosing the door you want, the host then reveals a door that didn't have the money. They then ask you if you'd like to keep the door you chose at the start, or if you'd like to switch to the remaining door. Most people would think that changing your choice doesn't matter, only happy that your choice is now a 50-50. But that's not true. The first time you choose a door, the odds were 1 in 3. If you switch doors now, you're making a choice that's 2 in 3, since one of the doors has been proven not to have the money. Knowledge that wasn't known at the time of your first choice. Now do this with 10 lockers and a life-saving gas mask in one of those lockers. It's not just thought experiments either, moral dilemmas are here too. Everyone's favorite trolley problem is back and better than ever, now with gun. Do you take a 50-50 chance, firing a live bullet, killing somebody as a result of your own actions? Or forgo your direct involvement for a 100% chance of losing someone through actions outside of your control? Having these situations come up intentionally within a life or death game, with characters in a story you care about, really makes you think about how to justify your actions. There are moments in this game that I will never forget how I felt. You see the result of your actions. All of them. Zero Time Dilemma takes the many worlds interpretation. Having every choice lead to an alternate timeline, then shows you those timelines. You need to exhaust all of your choices to learn the truth. This makes Zero Time Dilemma the darkest game in the series. The choices and probabilities are real. You live through all of the bad endings. You're forced to make all choices to progress, and they aren't afraid to show you the bad things at the end of each. They can get hard to watch too. At worst, you're manipulating these characters. Your motives align with Zero's, and you force them to make choices against their better judgment. You make them do something they would never do, and they need to live with the consequences. I felt disgusted with myself making those kind of choices. That strong feeling attached to this simple action made these moments memorable. I like to think the point of it all is to make the successes feel all the more powerful and emotional. It makes achieving those smaller victories in the face of sheer probability all the more impactful. You see bad thing after bad thing happen, with the hope that the happy ending is where everything will finally go right. As you view more scenes and make more choices, you build out the game's flowchart, showing how events are related in chronological order. Now instead of viewing scenes at random, you see how they connect and start jumping into them intentionally to open up new paths and progress the story. What was once escape rooms keeping you from progressing is now your own ability to decipher the game's story, come to a conclusion with the information provided, and make new choices that unlock new endings. Extra scenes are added depending on whether or not you've seen a related scene that keeps the story flowing. The themes of morphogenetic field and shifting lets each timeline remain just as critical to the main story as the next. It lets them tell a strong linear story in a non-linear way. As you master this detailed list of events, you'll come closer and closer to solving the biggest questions. Who is Zero? Why was everyone brought here? The message of Zero Time Dilemma to me is very nihilistic, but very refreshing. The butterfly effect. The notion that it's impossible to predict events, as they can be drastically affected by the smallest of changes. Zero tells this story of a woman jogging through the park who came to a fork in the road, with a snail on one of two paths. She chose the other path to avoid the snail, and by choosing this path, she was murdered and found dead a few hours later. Zero's claim is if she had not chose this path because of the solitary snail, things would have been different. Throughout the game, everyone has experienced horrific things happen, but there was an undeniable positive outcome. You can argue Zero's methods are insane. You could say his motives are complex. All of this strife was to add a positive spin on a negative message. You are a result of your experiences. These events drove everyone to leave with a stronger resolve. But even the final choice is not one without a great sacrifice. Even after you've solved all of the game's mysteries and found the good ending for yourself, you're still left wondering if the final choice was the right thing to do. I love this series' enthusiasm to create a world with a mix of believably fake science, real-life philosophy, and phenomena. It parodies reality to spin an interesting fictional tale. The story wouldn't be the same without these characters. I'm glad I played through the Zero Escape trilogy. Zero Time Dilemma provides excellent closure, while adding a great cast of characters and memorable moments that'll stick with me for some time. Thanks for watching the full video. If you want to support the channel, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing the video with others. You can find me at Ryan Beardy on social media, as well as Discord with links in the description below.